Thanks for tuning in to Tapped In. If you're feeling stuck or overwhelmed on the mats, come find your direction in our DFM Coaching BJJ School community. Now, let's get started.
Welcome to Tapped In. My name is David Figueroa-Martinez of DFM Coaching, and today we're going to be discussing the democratic Jiu-Jitsu coaching approach. As someone who has been around for quite a while, I've learned from multiple styles and teaching approaches, gyms, traditional, non-traditional, stuff that's kind of in the in-between stages. And I personally have always kind of shifted to the more of a democratic approach. And it's interesting because the sport that we're in and what we're doing is not necessarily democratic. Like, we don't get to vote on a whole lot of stuff that happens at the gym. There's an owner, there's a head instructor, and they set the tone for quite a bit of what's going to go on or not go on, how the money's spent, how it's not spent, what kind of resources are going to be developed back into the program. We don't get a whole lot of say with any of that stuff. Rightfully so. We're not owners in this business, so I get it. But it doesn't mean that we can't have a democratic approach when it comes to the instruction and the culture. I have learned Jiu-Jitsu under a couple of people that were more authoritative. And while it can create maybe more, I think it stifles creativity and evolving culture. I think that it creates, in some cases, especially if the personality is too rigid or too judgmental, you will get environments where students don't want to make mistakes, where students don't want to speak up, where they don't want to piss off the person in charge. And you get a very by the book experience. And anything outside of that kind of gets shunned or, ignored, pushed off to the side. And it doesn't help the creativeness or the creativity that Jiu-Jitsu is actually supposed to be. Then you go to these gyms where there's a bit more freedom. There's more exploratory nature when it comes to training, and you will feel the shift completely. I've been to both. I have studied at both. I do more of a democratic approach myself. That doesn't mean that we don't have rules in place, expectations in place, things that are going to make sure that how we conduct ourselves are in place. It doesn't mean that we don't have any of those things. And it doesn't even mean that everything that the student wants happens. It's more of a shared responsibility in how I coach you and what we're going to kind of review, or the facets in which we do that. The advantage to me of the democratic approach is I am more of a guide. I am not the dictator. I don't even like the word professor. I am not the person that is going to be super rigid and say, you have to learn X, Y, Z. I don't care what your body type is. I don't care what your ailments are. I don't care what your limitations are physically. You need to learn this, this, and this. And there's some elements where you have to learn how to escape the guard, how to retain the guard, how to escape bad positions. And there's certain submissions that you're going to have to learn, and they get applied a certain way. But I don't dictate what your game is going to look like. I don't dictate the submissions that you should be learning. I don't do formal belt tests where I say, yeah, they have to learn this set of moves. It's really about how you, as an artist, are creating the A game for yourself. Is it effective? Are you putting the right pieces together? And those pieces are going to be different from person to person. Are you taking advantage of Kazushi? Are you taking advantage of timing? Are you understanding leverage when you're doing these things? Those are the principles that I'm really looking after. How you get to that stage is completely up to you. My job is just kind of help you there and guide you and allow you to see the possibilities, and then to offer, hey, maybe you should do this, maybe you should add this here, and allow you to take more of an ownership. That ownership approach builds trust between you and I. I entrust that you know a bit more about your own body and what you're interested in, what your body's capable of, and how you want to put it together because of your temperament than I do. I don't want to make a bunch of carbon copies of me. I really don't. And when I look at my students, I don't have a specific copy of me. That doesn't exist. I have people who have sense of my game. I have someone who does Kimuras. I have someone who plays turtle really well. I have someone who smash passes. I have someone who uses butterfly hooks and the butterfly guard. But I don't have anyone that is following specifically in my footsteps, which I am incredibly happy about. I do not, and I say this again, I do not want copies of me. I do not want to make an environment where people feel like, oh, that's the way to success. I want students to feel like I have to piece these things together, and coach is there to help me. He's not going to do it for me. He doesn't give me the car and say, go drive. No, I got to piece it together a little bit. Additionally, I want to have feedback loops. I want to have these moments where I get with students periodically and I start asking, what are you happy about? What are you struggling with? What can I do better? I recently had a conversation with a student who I was approaching it from not wanting to dictate what they were going to do in any specific spot and more assisting. And they told me, well, at this stage, I personally want you to drive it a little further. Tell me what I should be doing. And then from there, I'll start developing some stuff. Cool. And that's what we've started to do. And the game is flourishing thanks to a little bit of that. And I think mainly because of some of the higher belts, and which I'll get into in a minute, kind of stepping in as well and coaching and mentoring that kind of develop those things as well. I want to have discussions about things that we're happy about, things that we're not happy about. I want to have discussions about, I remember when I first got there, I was doing a specific type of warm-up. Not everyone liked it. So I've truncated the warm-up down to, we do a flow round and then we start. Sometimes I'll have a set like 2-3 moves that we'll start doing as a warm-up. Like, yeah, I want you to pass the guard, go to mount, armbar, or pass the guard, go to mount, bottom person's going to bridge, they got to open the guard, pass the guard, and then it becomes a cycle. We do that occasionally. So that feedback, because I am, at the end of the day, I'm giving a service and I want to make sure that that service is what people want to be a part of. And sometimes you're going to get in there and you're going to realize, especially if you're brand new and you're trying to do like a traditional warm-up and no one likes it, you're just going to have to cut it back. There's a benefit probably, but you're going to have to cut it back. It's just not going to fit for the crowd that you're in. I really try to, as I mentioned, give ownership to the students and what they're developing. I have a guy who's into lasso. I have a person who's into loop chokes. I have someone who's into ankle locks. I have someone who's into chokes from the back. Like, there's a huge like conglomerate of subject matter experts here, which I'm super proud about. They don't look identical. They don't have identical games. They all have something different that they've kind of latched onto and made their own. And in that, I think because we have this approach, I think it also develops other people who are moving up the ranks, because then they see that it's not a top-down structure and it's more democratic. We all have a role to play here. We all help each other out. So then they take on those same leadership qualities and approaches, and they start mentoring people that are under them. It is one of the best things to see. It's a huge plus. I'm incredibly happy when I see the purple and brown belts mentoring other students. It's so much fun to watch, because that's when you know, okay, we're working something positive here. And then you start seeing the more advanced blue belts start doing it with the new white belts, or within the blue belt ranks, they're mentoring each other. It's beautiful. Like, that's the environment that you want. You do not, and I can't stress this enough, you do not want an environment where you have these people who feel like they are the source. And I don't say that disrespectfully or anything, but I've been in gyms where it was top down and I need you to do it this way because I do it this way. And it becomes a really rigid environment and you don't get the same mentorship from the next levels. It occurs naturally, but I don't think it happens to the depth that it should. I think sometimes when I would watch it, that approach actually kind of created cliquish environments, which end up being a problem. So maybe it works for your gym, maybe it works for your academy. By all means, who am I to judge? But I just personally don't think that it works that way. Additionally, I also want to have an environment where people don't feel uncomfortable asking questions. Hey, why do you do the technique that way? And I get that question a couple of times in my own morning program, and sometimes I get it at Five Peaks, or I'll have someone pull me aside at Sunny Dojo and be like, hey, I noticed that you do this, this, and this. Why? And I take great pride in the fact that you feel comfortable enough to ask. I need that. And I want that kind of relationship. So then I will often say, this is how I do it. This isn't the way. There is usually not one way. This is how I do it. Your instructor might have a different process or ability. You might even come up with a different approach based on your body type, your experiments, the things that you do really well, the thing that your body does or does not do well. And you might come up with a new way. But I do this because of XYZ. Recently, I was teaching a class, and one of the questions was, do you get the thumb up or thumb down grip? It was a grip from bottom half. I was grabbing the gi. And I explained, I do thumb up, but there are limitations because you can break the grip a little easier. But I just feel more comfortable with the thumb up. It's probably the way I was taught, or I learned it incorrectly and I just made it my thing. Sometimes that happens. There's no always do things the quote unquote right way. Sometimes we do things just because it works for us in our body types and our experiments. So, but I said the thumb down version is harder to break the grip, but I don't feel as strong. I personally try both, decide which one will work for you, and then move on from there. You do not have to do the same way I do it, but then there's moments where the technique really specifically requires a specific approach, and I'm honest about that too. But yeah, I want people to ask questions. I want people to question why the things are occurring. It shows that you're paying attention more. You're thinking outside the box. You're not going step by step. You're going step, what if this and why does that? That's a deeper understanding of the technique. And I personally encourage it. I've been in circles that wasn't always the thing. And sometimes you got your head bit off when you ask certain questions. So yeah, it's a big thing. Additionally, because we're asking questions, I also want an environment, and I think I get that, or you will get that from a democratic approach when it comes to leadership, where you entrust your students that it's okay to make mistakes, and they're going to make their own mistakes for the good of their own game. I have watched people teach who get on students about a mistake because they thought it was a dumb mistake. There's a different approach. If I'm going to belittle you for the mistake, that's not going to help your confidence grow, and it's not going to allow you to become a scientist that you really need to be. You need to treat this like a lab and do experiments. Thumb up, thumb down. Try which one works for you. If I pass the guard and my hips are a little higher, what happens? If I pass the guard and I lower my head, what happens? If I pass the guard with this grip, what happens? And that's really what I want you to do. I need you to experiment. Experiment all the way to failure. I failed when I did this. Why? Again, goes back to asking. When I mistimed this sweep, when should I have gone and why didn't it work? even when the timing was right. Sometimes it's the angle. Maybe sometimes it's you didn't pull back at the right part of the body. It allows your students to really just, we're going to fail. We're okay with failing. My instructor isn't judging me when I fail. My instructor isn't going to degrade me, isn't going to not physically demote me, but mentally demote me as someone that's close to getting promotions. That doesn't happen. I really want students who just go out there and try shit. I love watching the students at Sunny, Five Peaks, and La Mesa. Those are the three places that I'm at the most. All three things have something very close in common with one another. They try, they fail. They try, they fail. Seem to be a negative layer or a fog within any three of the gyms about failure. I can't say the same about when I was coming up. So when I watch these students playing jiu-jitsu without the care of failing, you can see the joy and you can see the experimentation and you can see the advancement occurs more often. When I failed 3 times at the same sweep and then I finally clicked, the click means so much more. I understand it more in depth. So that when I become an instructor and my instructor allowed me to fail so much all the way to success, I can then impart that back on them and be like, we're all going to just fail. I failed at this technique because of these things that I did incorrectly. And you can explain that to them. It gives them the why. Or when they ask you why, you have a deep answer because you were able to duplicate your successes over and over mixed in with the failures. It's not just a do it this way because I told you to do it this way. There's a trial and error that you are able to look back on that helps. I said this earlier. We do not want to have an environment where there is a source. We are all subject matter experts, and that's part of the democratic process. We're all subject matter experts. I do not understand everything. I don't know everything, nor will I ever. I got students that are great at footlocks, much better than I am. There are students at the academy that are way better at anything against the legs than I am. There are students that are great at back takes and attacking the back, and I'm decent, but I'm maybe not on their level. And then there's things that I do really, really well. Maybe they do equally as well, but they do it differently. So if we can get that environment where it's like the instructor isn't the only person I can ask. There's a whole bunch of these people around. So when I get a question that I don't quite understand or know all that in depth, I give them the answer. This is what I do. It's not the greatest answer, but I would ask such and such. And if they're in the room, I pull them up. You want the environment to understand that there are different sources and different experiences, and they're all equally important to the ecosystem that is the gym. You want that so that, God forbid, something happens to you, the gym can still live on. If you get sick, if you get injured, if you have to retire, if you have to move away, if you have to, you know what I mean? You want that knowledge base and that environment and that program to live on after you. So I think this is one of the best ways to do that. I think it's one of the best ways for Jiu-Jitsu to blossom. The less rigidity, the more outcomes, the more possibilities, the more guards start to get developed, the more approaches. Where the sport is getting older and we are getting older, and there's new ways of teaching. You got constraint-led approach now. Like, all this is beautiful, and it comes from having more of a democratic approach than the more traditional one. Traditional has its place and it has its way of growth and growing, but personally, I don't think it's the best model. And you can do something in the middle where you have some traditions that you keep and some that you do a little bit more democratically. That's beautiful too. I'm hoping to shed some light on for the coaches and maybe some people who are getting ready to maybe start coaching soon. You're going to, if you haven't started yet, you're going to start modeling your coaching based on the things that you value. You have some coaches that are really great with people and you're going to take little bits and pieces from them. And then you have this online coach or someone that's on the online space that you love the way they approach coaching at competitions or maybe the games they set up or the way they structure class, and you take that with you. Build what you have, build what you can. It doesn't have to mirror what your own coach is doing. You can take bits and pieces from him or her. But at the end of the day, it's your philosophy that's going to develop. And my opinion, the more democratic, the better. Hoping this makes sense. If you have any questions on this or anything else, please hit me up. DFM.2099 on Instagram and Threads. Until next time, thank you so much.